Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Jeanne Gallagher, just with Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better, and welcome. And I'm here with Denise DeGaulle. Hey, Denise.
Hey, Jeanne.
And we're continuing our conversation on your interesting take on resolutions and how we should really look at these so much more differently than we do, because it's really a habit change. And I love what you want to talk about, because you're talking about asking for help. And that's not something that's usually on the, it's not on the bingo card for resolutions.
No, and this I think kind of, it comes along with resolutions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, resolutions and what we should be, or what we could be doing better in a couple of other episodes as well. But this I think is really important because, we've been told forever, oh, you have to make a New Year's resolution. What's your New Year's resolution? This year I said, done with these resolutions. They don't work for tons of reasons. So I decided, let's pick a theme. So we've been talking about what that theme is, right? My theme for the year is impact. What kind of impact that I want to have on myself, obviously, my husband, my family, my friends, my clients, and our audience, right? And what I realized in the last couple of weeks, that something is missing when we're creating this theme, whatever it is, impact, harmony, give it, whatever you've decided. What did you decide? Did you pick one?
A word, excuse me, a word?
A theme, yeah.
Decide.
Decide. Ha. So, okay, so this is interesting. So what I find is we've created these ideas now, this theme for the year, and it's ours. We've taken ownership of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But can we achieve it the way we want to on our own?
It's a good question. We think we should, because the ego takes over.
Absolutely. We think we should. Ha, there's that word. Trying to remove that word out of my vocabulary, because when we talk about, we should do this or I should do that, we kind of are pushing, it's kind of like getting pushed into doing something rather than like getting pulled to do something because it's something you want to do. Right. So when we do all these things by ourselves, one, it gets lonely. Two, you kind of lose momentum. And, three, you kind of all of a sudden go, wait, what did I start out to do anyway? And I'm doing this all by myself. Why am I doing that? So I have a client who, she's a friend actually. Sometimes I think I'm more her client than she is mine. But she used to own a fitness studio down in Florida. And when she first opened, she tried to manage everything herself. Now, she is in incredible shape. She loves this studio. And it was really what she always wanted to do. She did literally everything. She was teaching classes. She was marketing. She was cleaning the toilets, right? And eventually, the workload just was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't having fun anymore.
Right.
So what do you do in that situation? Do you close up shop? No, of course not. What do we do?
That's not why she got into it, though. She didn't get into it not to have fun.
Exactly. The same thing with our theme for the year. We didn't get into it not to have fun or not to succeed. So what we realized when I was talking to my friend Lisa is she was always that she's always been kind of that driver, type A personality. I can do anything, and she basically can. Whatever she's tried, she's succeeded at. What she realized at this point was trying to do it on her own was failing. However, when she asked for help, she got an assistant. She got paid someone to clean the studio every night. All of a sudden, she enjoyed what she was doing because she she was back to herself. She wasn't the jack of all trades. She was the amazing fitness pro that she had set out to be. So why do you think we as women, especially at this stage in our lives, um, the midlife stage, why do you think we do this? Like we feel we need to do this and we need to do it on our own.
I like to think that that was a rhetorical question.
Yes.
because I don't know that I have an answer, but I feel like I'm falling into this pattern, so I'm uncomfortable answering the question. But it gets to a point when we get to be of a certain age that we just like, well, it's just easier if I do it.
That is a big part of it because one, there's, letting go. Right. A lot of times you think, yeah, it's faster if I just do this, but it's faster if I do this and faster if I do this. And all of a sudden now you've got 10 things that'll be faster. But if you had taught one person how to do one of them, you could actually focus more. So when we ask for help, whether it's, asking our BFF to support us, be an accountability partner, if we hire an assistant, oh, God forbid, right? How many businesswomen do we know say, oh, I don't really have the money to hire an assistant? Well, if they hired the assistant, they'd have more money because they'd be focusing on the things that were important, right? And let's be real, at this stage in life, energy can be an issue. I don't have the same amount of energy I did at 53 and 3/4 than I did when I was 20. Still energetic and I still feel good. But let's be real, by 6 o'clock at night, I'm done. Where I used to be able to go, 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 go. I was the Energizer Bunny, right? Friends in college used to call me Perpetual Motion 2, because apparently I had a friend who was Perpetual Motion 1.
But doesn't it become the work smarter, not harder piece? And that's what you were talking about with your friend. She's working harder and she's working harder, but she's not working as smartly as she should be.
Exactly. So this is the time when, whether you've made a resolution, if you did, I recommend stepping back and creating a theme for the year. If you've already created that theme for the year, awesome. But now it's time to think, who do I need to support me to make sure this happens the way I want it to? So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Last thought. Success.
Please.
Success is not a solo journey. It's about sharing it with others.
What a great way to end that one. Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. This is Jeanne Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Segal. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach. And you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. I am Jeanne Gallagher, and I am excited to introduce our guest for today, Annie Emprima. And Annie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm really looking forward to this. We talked a lot prior to in our little pre-conversation, pre-chat, and I'm really looking forward to sharing your story. And before we get into that, can you give us a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive in?
Yeah, I think the quick version is I deployed in 2016. During my deployment, a particular set of skills unlocked. All of my senses turned up. I didn't know what to do with it back then. But over the past 10 years, I've been guided, maybe we call it higher power. Anyone can use whatever language fits their belief system. Guided to understand trauma beyond what we're studying and what researchers are looking at today. So I have become a metaphysical trauma researcher through my own journey of healing, and then also through witnessing my clients and the world around me. So I am in constant observation of trauma and tracking patterns, professionally and personally, and witnessing how trauma leads and ripples through societies, but so does healing.
Interesting. And so, first of all, I mentioned this before, but thank you for your service. And that service piece really, you gave the short version, so it seemed
Very
like it
short.
wasn't quite as important, but it's really the foundation and the basis of where you're at today, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I don't even think an 800-page book could condense what I have been through in the past 10 years. It has been a nonstop. It's like I'm I'm walking into lessons rather than reading them in a book or having an academic training. I am continuously stepping into lessons of healing with no break. So 10 years of, well, now we're in this class life experiential classroom of this topic, and then it changes to another topic, but they all come together to help me help other people.
Mm. And you can go into this as deeply or as high level as you'd like to, but for the audience to understand, I think trauma is such a word that's used so often and
Mhm.
for many different things, and not to belittle it in any way, because any source of trauma or any reason for trauma is incredibly important.
Mhm.
But I think, and I don't know because I've never been in service, but I would assume that trauma that you're experiencing while you're deployed is a deeper level of trauma than most people experience. Would you agree?
It's different. It's different. And I've witnessed this in social media where someone with severe combat PTSD is arguing with someone that has incest PTSD. And like, well, I've been in combat. No, that's not, um, it's just different. So when you're in combat spaces, and I was in Kuwait predominantly, I was in Iraq. We were flying in and out of Iraq. Um, one of my routes, we did take ground fire in the plane. But the greatest part of the trauma that I sustained was from other people in my unit not having, it was a big soup of people that didn't have an awareness of trauma reacting to the stressors of a deployment. So we're in a contained space where you can't, unlike here in garrison, in civilian space, you can leave, you can go somewhere, you can go on a trip, you can reset. When you're in a deployment space, you can't. You are in this space for 10, 12 hours a day with people. There isn't really anywhere to have personal space. You can't get in your car and go drive for 2 hours. You can't. So whatever natural way of coping in fight, flight, freeze, you can't just start a fight with someone. You can't. So then all of those symptoms have to shift into a different way of presenting. And so people that had the natural fight in them were getting louder and meaner, and people who had the flight were withdrawing, and people who were freezing were feeling sensations in a more intense way. So it's just a different way of experiencing trauma. Um, it's certainly not something that has hierarchy in the trauma conversation.
And when you're going through those situations, do you realize the level of trauma that's happening to you at that time, or is it's more of reflective looking back and saying, oh, that's why I feel like that?
Oh, it's more reflective. It's when I think back, when I try to sit into that moment, what I could tell you is I felt heavy, that I couldn't even use the word overwhelm at the time. I probably felt overwhelmed, but at the time it was, I felt heavy, I felt unheard. So I would describe it in real time more like that. I I could say I was angry. I could definitely say I was angry.
Mhm.
Um, Shock. I would have been able to express that. But there's such a culture of suck it up
Mhm.
that, and you're witnessing other people doing the same thing. So it's really hard to identify when you're not the only one, when it's happening as a group. I, but I didn't know, I knew in the deployment, I could see people responding through trauma. I knew enough about trauma then to see that, but I myself didn't know I had PTSD until far later.
Mm. And part of so the trauma happens, I would think, in different stages. The pressure of being deployed and the constant pressure of being deployed, because what you're saying is you're not able to disconnect at all.
Mm-mm.
And no one else is either. So it's very difficult to lower that level of the normalcy is at such a high extreme level. It's very difficult to lower that into a controlled, more comfortable situation.
Yeah.
And it's constant. And the demands of your position and the demands of your responsibility and the demands of taking care of the other people in your unit also play a part of that too,
Yeah.
in many different layers.
Yeah. There's nowhere to reset the nervous system. You go to the
Mhm.
gym with other people releasing their nervous system. You go, you go for a walk. There's hundreds of other people going for a walk. There's nowhere where, and it's not, I was in Kuwait, so it wasn't like I could go sit against a tree. There were no trees. Any trees that were there were probably 4 inches tall, and somebody brought them in and was, they were in a pot outside someone's front door. There was no nature to go to. There was no retreat.
Mhm.
So, and everyone's kind of going through the same thing. So it amplifies and it becomes very stressful because you can't, there's nowhere to put it, which is where people get in a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
So, um,
And that's also what makes the transition out
mhm.
equally as difficult, if not harder, because when you're transferring out, all of the rules and the box that you were in is no longer there.
And there was no stand down order for the microadrenaline that we carried. There was no conversation. For us, we had a 30-day, a 60-day, and a 90-day check-in. 30 days after deployment, hey, the whole unit as a National Guard unit, we check in. But there was nothing that said a year from now, we're going to check your mental health. We're going to see how you're coping and reintegrating. That didn't happen at the 1 year mark or the 3 year mark. And
Mhm.
yet sometimes it takes that long to really see the effects of a deployment. Uh, financial Financially, people aren't going to have financial issues at the 90-day mark. They're going to have financial issues down the road because it cascades into something bigger that they can't keep up with.
What was that progression like for you once you came back?
During my deployment, I kept saying, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it when I get home. I'll deal with it down the road. Except when I came home to someone who had, he was no longer present in his body. So I came home thinking somebody was going to catch me, but he had
Mm.
his own reaction to my deployment of me being gone.
Oh.
And so I came home expecting someone to just, for me to just collapse. And maybe it was a fantasy, but I wanted to just exhale. But I came home to a different storm. And that swirled me in a different direction, which compounded my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual processing of what I had just dealt with. So it was like one chaos storm to another chaos storm.
And also that second chaos storm was not what you had envisioned either.
No,
So that also throws another layer in of your expectations were not met or equaled either. And now there's the disappointment or the
it was a
loss.
betrayal. It felt betrayal.
Yeah. Yeah, that there's that emotional loss of what you had thought you had.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I came home with physical injuries. We had, when I say jump out of a C-130, I wasn't jumping out of the sky. We had landed in Baghdad after our plane had taken ground fire. So we had to have an emergency combat exit, like get off the flight line. So I a couple times going in and out of Iraq, we didn't get the luxury of having a little footstool coming off the back tail end of the plane. So we jumped like the 18 to 20 inches, or I don't remember what it was, but it was enough that I injured my knees and my ankles.
Mm.
With all the gear that I was carrying, and then a little bit of the adrenaline of what what we were going through. And then you had to run a distance with that weight. So I came back with knee injuries and ankle injuries and wrist injuries, a little bit in my wrist, just from like being so tense carrying the gear. And so I needed surgery on my knees. I was wobbling, and power walking was my source of, at the time, it was my source of relief. Could just power walk for 5 miles and I would have enough mind space to clear out what I was doing. And that got taken away from me. And I say it that way because it felt like I didn't get to choose. And now I was being forced to like be contained in my own home, similar to how we were contained in deployment. I couldn't leave because I couldn't walk fast. I would get, at the time, I would probably get 25, 30 steps, and then I would be too wobbly. I was limping too much. I couldn't continue. So I felt like I was having my own deployment back home in it with different set of rules, a different board game, but
once again, not in control at all.
Not in control. So that really compounded a lot of what I was experiencing. And it made it really difficult for me to understand. I can handle a lot of emotions, but frustration is the one that is the hardest for me, of feeling like I've run out of options. If I can do this, or I can do this, or I can do this. But when I've tried all of them and I've exhausted them, that frustration in me is really difficult for me to move through.
And, I really thank you for talking through this because, and I'm sure it's not easy to go through this, but it's really important to where you're at today. The trials and tribulations that you went through have really molded Annie for today and what you're able to, how you're able to help others because of the trauma that you experienced and the lack of resources that you experienced as well, correct?
I would not be here doing the work I'm doing, and I wouldn't have, it's like a vaccine. How we have a small dose, when someone takes a vaccine, we get a small dose of that to be able to combat larger exposure. So many of the moments that I've experienced in my life prepared me to be able to hold shame and guilt and grief and betrayal for other people, because I have sat in it too. And even though that wasn't my large story, I have enough of an experience to have the capacity to hold a container for someone with a lot of that weight, emotional weight.
So what was it like for you trying to walk this walk, coming back and not having resources or not finding the resources that you needed?
My book is called Trauma Whispers Before It Roars, because there was so much anger in me, anger of so many people that I felt should have had my back, should have seen me, should have noticed, should have checked in, the should haves. I had built up so much anger of, why am I the only one seeing this? And why am I the only one holding myself up? So that roar of anger carried me forward. It was a very, I take a big exhale. It was a very difficult 10 years because there was no reprieve. It was one thing after another, and it was trying to survive so many storms without having time to really breathe.
How did you do it?
Looking back, I have no idea. Like,
Because you were supposed to.
yeah, I look back and there are moments in my life where I think that should have, I, that could have broke me,
Mhm.
but it didn't break me. And I think of these moments of, I see how there was a big moment when I recognized I could have used substance to numb the emotions.
Mhm.
And I had great empathy for people with addiction because I could see how difficult it was to carry the emotion without trying to get something to help suppress it and slow it down because it weighed so much in my body.
Constant and
Constant,
consistent
chronic.
and never
Yes.
ending.
Yes.
Which is why many people do find themselves looking towards some substance to numb
Mm,
that consistent pain, that's mental emotional pain that's happening.
yeah. Yeah. I have great empathy and a lot more awareness of the story when I'm working with clients that have substance abuse history.
Mhm. Yeah. And so there's this emotional component, and we're really talking through such a high level to this. There's so much more to deep down to dive into, but we're it's kind of skimming the surface, not to it's very important, but just talking through the surface of it. But there's this emotional piece, but then there's also, you also mentioned this financial piece that happens through the return from service, the trauma that happened. Things are different than you thought they were going to be. It's difficult to fit into a round peg square hole kind of a piece, but also that throws in this financial component that really tips the cart.
Oh, yeah. I didn't learn a whole lot from my dad. And I say that because at the time when he passed away, I thought I was going to be speaking in for his eulogy, and I could not think of one thing he taught me. And then it finally dawned on me, the one thing he did teach me was not to have debt. He
Mhm.
bought his house in cash, he bought his cars in cash. So that has been really important to me. And my husband at the time didn't have the same respect for money.
Mhm.
So I went to basic training at the beginning of our relationship, and I came home to $5,500 in debt. And that was scary for me. When I came back from the deployment, we were $22,000 in debt. And
Wow.
that trying to deal with everything else, it was now I have financial crisis in
Mhm.
my mind because I'm not working. I've come back. I'm injured. I can't focus on an email. So I had a business before I deployed, but I couldn't sustain it. And I learned that very quickly about a month into it that I could not respond to emails. So now my source of income is gone.
Mhm.
And when I asked for a divorce about 6 months later, I inherited half the debt, but I had no income.
Wow.
And I looking back, I think, how did I survive? My knee, the VA rating for my knee was processed while I was deployed. They're like, yes, you're going to get a rating. We're going to submit this now. So I was getting, just a couple $100 for my knee, one knee. And that's what I was surviving on
Wow.
for all of 2017. When I think back, I think, how did I even put food on the table? How did I get this far? And my worst nightmare was happening because I was accumulating debt because I couldn't work, but I still had to live. There was,
Mhm.
and it wasn't like, oh, go get a job. I was struggling to walk. I was struggling to think. There was no one that was going to hire me. I couldn't even get through an interview. And
And the struggling to think part's not visible. The
no,
struggling to walk part is obvious.
it's
But
obvious.
the other piece, the mental piece, is you can't see from the outside.
No, no, it's me staring at an email, trying so hard to just remember what the three paragraphs prior said to continue for me to even be able to reply to an email. It took me 6 minutes to read something that should have taken 20 seconds. And then by the time I go to reply, I couldn't remember what I read to reply back. I'm like, my brain is not working. And the financial heaviness was just, that was its own beast. Having debt. There's a very interesting journey. When I was at the tail end of my deployment, I had a whisper come in, and whispers really started speaking to me because 4 days into my deployment, my senses cranked up. So I was already used to hearing these whispers, kind of like a really micro government agency earpiece deep in my ear.
Something bored into your ear.
Yeah, it was in my ear, but no one else could hear it. And it would come like a whisper. And if anyone's ever watched the movie Meet Joe Black, it was like that kind of a conversation where no one else hears it, but it's inside my ear. And it said to me, I'm having a conversation with someone about stocks. And it said, if you care so much about your community, like you just said you are, it was calling me out on a contradiction. I was talking about how I cared about my community, but then I followed it up and talked about how I was investing in global stocks. It said, if you care about your community, why are you investing in global stocks? Sell your stocks. And I didn't want to sell my stocks. So a month later, that whisper comes back, sell your stocks. And about a month after I got back, it was like a kick in the back of my leg. Sell your stocks. So I sold all my stocks, all my traded stocks. And I started investing in my community. And this was before, like, I'm just getting back from deployment. Things haven't really happened yet. So I invested a large sum of money in a particular local company. So as all of this is happening and I'm incurring debt and things are not working well, we get the pandemic, and the pandemic hits. And I'm thinking I lost this huge sum of money that I invested in with this business, that I had lost it. And I'm grieving the loss of this money as I'm grieving the loss of my independence and grieving, like I have no money. So my son, for his birthday, I bought a $25 gift. And part of it, my mother let me borrow money from. Like, she gave me $50 and she said, here, buy him a $40 gift and take 10 and add it to what you have. And then it was like this pain of being a mother, because my ex-husband knew I didn't have money. So he would buy these really extravagant gifts for my son. So I'm like fighting all this financial subplot in my head. And my son's like, is this it? Is this all? And this is all, literally all I have, minus the bills that are getting paid.
So much inadequacies comes out of that.
Oh, it hit me so hard. And the weight of this debt, because there was that frustration, there was nothing I could do. I couldn't grab anything to make money. I couldn't focus long enough to make money. Well, the pandemic hits, and this is the tail end. Like, money, I'm starting to do coaching in 2019, and the pandemic hits, and the employment money for salaries was issued to the company that I had invested in. So they used part of that to pay me back and buy me out. So now I had this sum of money, 2020, from 2017, 2018, 2019, just scraping by. 2019, I'm just starting to have my intuitive coaching rolling. So I still don't have enough money to sustain, but it's enough that I'm not going into debt anymore. It's 2 years. And then when they paid that back with the interest and the contracted amount, it wiped out all my debt. And that exhale was, I cannot describe it in words, because it was such a deep sensation of this like 50-pound weight on my chest that I could not get off all those years gets lifted. And it was an exhale that, to this day, when I work with clients and money, we don't understand the emotional weight of debt. It is heavy. And when I was about $30,000 in debt at the time, and my credit card of just surviving, that got paid out. I went and bought a brand new washer and dryer with cash for the first time in all these years. That exhale, I did not realize how it was contributing to the trauma. I didn't realize how that weight added to the other weight to make this big boulder on my chest and shoulders and my hips. And that was contributing to my ability to heal, because you can't really heal when you're drowning in something else.
Yeah, your body is trying to fight both
Yeah.
aspects, and it's really combating everything opposite of each other, and nothing's going to the wellness side.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, even now I can, if I think back, how heavy that was, how heavy it was. And that was a vow I made. I don't want to go in unnecessary debt. Not to say that surviving was unnecessary, but I now have a greater appreciation, and perhaps my pendulum swung a little to the other side of, we're going to make sure that there's always emergency fund for 3 years in case this happens again, which I know it will not. But psychologically, I need to have that pad of 3 years salary because it hurts so much. And I don't, it's not a trauma I need to focus on healing, because it's not affecting my life. It's not doing anything other than having a cash reserve in the event of a major internal catastrophe, because it was so heavy, and I don't want to ever not feel the freedom that I feel today.
It takes the pressure off of your performance.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
what you're doing every single day, it gives it a new meaning, your daily activities. So your daily activities are not protecting you from the world. They're adding to the world.
yeah. And it felt like the seas parted. I say this metaphorically. All of the pressure of debt, like being in the military, I don't worry about healthcare. I have enough money. My business is doing well, that I can create and create with such intention, because the other factors that many people worry about, getting fired from their job, healthcare costs, all of that is pushed to the side. I don't have those worries. So when I create, I'm creating faster and deeper and more intent, with more intention and more impact, because those pieces have moved to the side, and they're just in the peripheral, not in my face.
And so what is that path now that you're able to, how are you taking the lessons that you've learned and the healing of yourself, and how are you affecting others currently?
My book is coming out, Trauma Whispers Before It Roars, and it's a field manual for the nervous system. So it's a very intentionally written, paced book to help people see trauma when they may not have known they had trauma. I didn't know I had trauma, and I was boiling like a volcano with trauma, and I still couldn't identify, because in my mind, it was the combat vet that couldn't function, that was, you know, behaving poorly in public and having, that was my, even though I was in it, I was a yellow ribbon reintegration program coordinator, NCO for the military. I was around mental health. They saw it, didn't see it. So I wrote this book to walk people in of, hey, let's take a look at what's in your home. Let's go for a tour of your home. Let's take a look and see if trauma is reflecting back and we don't know it. Let's examine how we treat our pets and see if there's some clues there of, could trauma be sitting there? And could this be a reflection of trauma? And so the book is a really slow, it's a crawl, walk, run design to help people identify trauma, recognize trauma, and then build something with that. So the book is a big priority. My research is a big priority, because I am seeing miracles, and I put that in sort of air quotes, miracles of healing physical ailments by focusing on trauma. And
How so? How does that appear?
uh, many of the people that come to me to work with me, the first session I do is I scan their body. I want to see where the trauma is sitting. And it's mental. It's like this particular gift I have, like superpower X-ray vision, and it'll show me where it's sitting in the body. And then we start to identify, what is it? Where did it come from? So a couple examples I have, there's a client of mine on TikTok right now that is posting every day her journey of coming out of stage 4 breast cancer. Had a huge tumor on the right side of her breast. That tumor's now gone. So 4 years ago, when I started working with her, one of the sessions we did was we went into her head to see what she was thinking. Like, what are the phrases being looped? And it was, I'm so fat, I'm so ugly, no one's gonna love me, I'm unlovable. And it was pages of my written notes. As she's talking, I'm writing, pages are coming out. And there was such a disconnection from the head to the heart that she's drinking soda on this interview that we're doing. She's drinking soda casually, like it's not quite hitting the heart, saying all these things, and it's not quite hitting the head, like, hey, you're the cause of it. Not that the trauma she experienced were her responsibility, but how those traumas created the loops, and the loops continued. So when she started having more love for her body is when her body started healing. So 4 years ago, she had a letter for hospice. She's now posting on TikTok her journey of coming out of that. I had another client that had like all my clients that had fibromyalgia. We go digging for chronic grief. Let's go find out where it is, and let's reconcile it and have compassion around it. And it alleviates the pressure off the musculoskeletal system. There have been a lot of really remarkable PTSD, looping PTSD, so especially with men, whether it's military or not, going back through time and reconciling that part of time when it first rooted, alleviated, it lifted the migraine, it lifted the headaches. I choose to stay in metaphysical trauma research because there's so much of our brain and our consciousness that feed our reality. And when we can go back and we can fill that with compassion instead of shame, biologically it shifts. The language then shifts in the body. So there's stories running through my head, but I'm wanting to make sure that I have permission to speak those stories. Like,
totally understand that. Yeah.
I don't have.
So what I'm also hearing is that our physical ability to heal, it comes from multitude of different sources. One source is the quality of the healthcare that we're receiving and the medicine or whatever that's attacking. Let's say it's breast cancer or whatever that is, the medicine that's happening, the quality of the healthcare that we're receiving, and the knowledge of the doctors. So there's the hard and fast, tangible piece. And then the other pieces that are equally as important, but not within our healthcare system, are how are we feeding our bodies? And because nutrition is not always a conversation, or I would kind of go on the never piece of conversation within the healthcare system, is how are you physically feeding your body, but also how are we mentally feeding our body? And what kind of scars have been internalized from that mental piece, because those scars are really preventing some of the healing that should be happening. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. No one can wave a wand and say, I have the magic answer. That's not, I laugh when they say it takes a village. It takes multiple people with multiple sets of expertise to see the full story. And I do wish that we had more of a reverence for multiple angles of observation to have a seat at the table, the medical, the mental health, the nutritionist, because that's really the full 360 of healing, to feel emotionally supported by the people around us, community.
And if you don't have the financial ability or the resources to seek out these other pieces that are not handed to you through your insurance, then you're not finding the resources that are needed.
Maybe, but I think that there's a way to navigate. I was on TikTok multiple times a week, many years, and people could watch the demonstrations for free. It may not have been their money and their demo, but to learn through other people is also quite powerful. So I think that there are resources, it's understanding the value of the resource that's in front of us.
The value, but also the importance.
The importance, yeah.
And so as you're walking through this and your financial situation starts to change and moves to much more positive than negative, you're identifying the trauma within yourself. And through all of this, you're starting to help others as well walk through their trauma journey.
Mhm.
And how did that change? And then in addition to that, there's these magic whispers that are coming
Mhm.
that have
Yeah.
started to develop and are getting maybe louder than a whisper as time goes on, or do they still whisper? But how does that process, how has that evolved? When you started working with clients in 2019 and then COVID happened, how has it transformed? And there's a piece that I want to get into as well, and that's the angel investing piece that you're doing, because I think it's really important that we touch on this before we exhaust our time together.
Yeah. Um, that whisper in me is I align it with my higher power, my higher self, my higher existence in my belief system. And the whisper stays a whisper. Even when I'm working with a client, I'll be working with them, their soul or their essence will communicate with me into my invisible earpiece. And it'll say, go down to their feet, go look at their feet. There's something there, and we're going to guide you through this. And so I'll ask them about their feet, and we'll go into a story. It's like, okay, well, that's where we're going to target today. That's where our session's going. So the whispers stay whispers. And my whispers, like the title of my book, Trauma Whispers Before It Roars, my whispers exist to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, how can we help other people? No, I take that, like even the whispers, like, not always. When you were at the Garth Brooks concert, that wasn't so. But it's really about my contribution in a greater capacity. So when I had those three whispers hit me at the end of my deployment and getting home to invest in other businesses, it failed to tell me that I needed to go learn about investing first. It was like, invest in your community. Okay, great. And I made some very bad choices at the beginning because I invested in my friends thinking, oh, well, this is where I'm supposed to go. Like, this is where I feel really soul led to do.
Identified as community, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't that wasn't so. So I then forced me these really bad lessons of losing money with people that I thought were my friends, forced me to become a part of a syndicate in a group. So I joined Startup NV, which is a local Nevada-based angel group, and they have a fund group as well. So I've been investing with them since 2021. And I am using my money, my extra resources to invest in the local economy because it's helping to stimulate other businesses that are existing in my state. So that has been really rewarding. And it just feels like if my mind wants something and my body wants something, maybe my body's craving a food, my mind might be craving some creative satisfaction. My soul wants contribution. And I can feel it in me that this is something that honors that part of me, that attribute within. And I will be hitting November of this year will mark 10 years.
Wow. Back
from my deployment in 2016. So it'll mark 10 years in November of 2026. And it'll also have marked $100,000 that I have invested back into my community.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So this is the first 10 years. And I want my contribution to be much, much larger for the next 10 years.
And what's your focus?
I started out with just Nevada, but early 2025, I shifted to women, BIPOC, LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last bit this year is actually going to be micro loans to local community-based, Las Vegas-based felons. That came in as a whisper of there's a need here, there's a gap, and to be able to offer $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000 loans to felons that want to start a small business to sustain, so that they have a sense of sovereignty.
Where do you think the source of that whisper came from?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't, for all of the curiosity that I have, I don't want to know. I don't want to spend a lot of time tracing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a respect enough not to dive deeper into it. But I have seen the witnessing when I was deployed, the whisper, or it would feel like hands on my shoulders or this push on my back, to engage with someone that I may or may not like or may not know very well. And those whispers led to something that I could not comprehend in the moment. Things where I felt like I was being awkward ended up being moments where I had one time when someone said, they came back to me a couple years later and they said, you don't know this, but I was praying to not feel so alone. And you just showed up over
Wow.
and over again. And so I don't, it may not make sense, but I respect it so much that I don't want to know where it's coming from. I've seen it do the work that it does, and I allow it to be.
Mm. And you're showing up for people in many different ways. You're one-on-one, you're working one-on-one with clients, and then you're angel investing and helping, giving resources. And there's so much going out and putting out for other people. How are you taking care of yourself? What does that look like? How do you refuel Annie?
So those whispers, those whispers, they said you have to go on vacation 4 times a year. You have the money, you have to go on vacation. You have to step away from what you're doing. And it was like an instruction. It wasn't even a whisper. That was a suggestion. It was, you're
An
going
order.
to. So I was just in Panama. And before that, the quarter before that, I was down in Mexico, Honduras, and Belize on a cruise. And I will be in Massachusetts this coming quarter. So I step away every quarter for at least 7 days to let my healing take place, so that I can come back in and keep going, so that I don't burn out. And I really enjoy heat. So the Caribbean is my happy place. It's the closest, geographically, the closest to get me near the equator. But I would happily travel to any country on the equator around the world to get that UV, to get that intensity. And I love the ocean. I love lakes. I love paddleboarding. So I've got this, some people track, they collect spoons or shot glasses. I want to go paddleboarding in every country I go to. So I do that.
And you're bringing that aspect of being on the water and the physical piece and how important that is, and in the importance of recharging that. And I think that this probably needed to be the beginning of the conversation and the focus of everything, because where so many people are giving of themselves to others, but they're not taking the time to give themselves the same respect that they give to others in the moments of needed.
Yeah. 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 I work hard and I have to rest hard. Rest hard sounds weird. I have
No,
to
it doesn't.
rest.
It's perfect. It's actually perfect. Yes, because there is that respite piece or the
Yeah.
rest. Yes. And doing it at the same intensity that you're doing everything else, but for yourself.
Yeah. And I have to. I know if I skip on that, there's a consequence.
Hmm.
There's a consequence to my physical health. There's a consequence to my mind. And there's a consequence to how I serve my community, how I serve my clients.
Yeah. And so how do Well, I've got two questions in my, that are kind of trying to come out my mouth at the same time. Question number one is, what would you think would be some indicators if somebody says, I wonder if I should be working with Annie or if I should reach out to her? What would be some indicators that it might be either a good fit or a needed service that you can help them with?
Almost all of my really, I'm going to word this differently. All of my clients that had big aha moments, my client that was blind, that is no longer blind, has cancer, no longer, they were pulled to me. It was like their soul whispered to them, go to her. And even when their mind said, oh, well, I don't really understand what she does, that it was a prompting to push. But then I have other people that come to me for coaching, and they know that their mind and their heart are not connected, and they want a greater relationship with their mind and body. So if I ask someone right now, when you're in anger, where do you feel it in your body? And if they say, I don't know, then they need a discovery session. So
perfect. But
yeah.
that's a great analogy of the mind and the body piece being disconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then how do they reach out to you? Where do they find you?
There is only one Annie Emprima. So if they see my name and they ask ChatGPT or any AI or Google, any search engine, there's only one of me. So all of those places
they are you.
Yeah. AnnieEmprima.com. Any of them bring them back to me.
Perfect. And then where does your book come out? Trauma Whispers Before It Roars.
August 12th.
Exciting. And where will that be?
It'll start on Amazon, and then it'll be on Barnes and Noble, I think about 30 days later. It'll be available on barnesandnoble.com, and then it'll go into the indie stores after that.
Fantastic.
It's a slow rollout.
That's fantastic. Annie, this has been a pleasure. And I thank you so much for taking the time to share your personal story, because it's so much the foundation of the light that you shine now and how you're helping others. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show is sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me, and if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.